In review of the status of our app so far, we've got this title screen. We click on the begin button. We can click on the first menu item on the menu screen here. Go there, and now we can see the first recipe. What we're going to do in the final video, is make the back button work so that we can return to the menu. Also make this scroll up and down so we can read the rest of the recipe. So to get started with that, we'll be using a set of files, one file in particular developed by the Corona community called Scroll Content. You can just Google Corona SDK and Scroll Content and you'll be able to find this page where you can download the two files you'll need, which are scrollview.lua and util.lua. So our recipe1.lua file, we'll also be creating recipe 2, recipe 3 and recipe 4 in this video. We'll all use the scroll view Lua file so they can scroll up and down. Looking at the recipe1.lua file here, let's start by adding our functionality so the back button works and takes us back to the menu. So, going to start by adding a scene variable to the back button. So we say back.button so we can use the director class. We're going to make that equal to the name of the screen we'd like to return to, which is menu. So we'll add that. We also need to add a listener event to our back button. Oops. So we'll do that by saying back add event listener. The type of event is going to be a touch event. When that occurs, we want to call the change scene function back in the main.lua file. So I'll save that. The other thing we need to do is actually add the graphics we've got, which is the recipe graphic, the top bar and the back button, all need to be added to the recipe group. So down the bottom here, I'm going to say recipe group insert brackets. First one is going to be the recipe 1 graphic. I'm going to copy that line, paste it twice underneath, and then we'll insert the back button and also the top bar and save that. Right, so our back button should hopefully now work. Again, we've added this button variable to it. Well, actually, I've just realised that should be scene, not button. Okay, so we've got a scene variable on our back button with a value of menu, so that when it calls the change scene, and we look at e.target.scene, that'll be equal to menu, and we should see them go back to the menu screen. So let's just check if it works. Going back here, Control R, begin. Click on the first one, click the back button, and it's worked. It's taken us back to the menu, so that's good. Now, we'll go back here, and let's get this, so it's got the scroll functionality so that we can scroll that content up and down and see the whole recipe. To do that, I'm going to come right up the top here, just underneath where we create the recipe group. We're going to need to add a few more variables. First one, I'm going to call scroll view. In there, we're going to set that equal to, well, we're going to require, which means just let's use the scrollview.lua file, which we've got in our project directory. So we require that. The other file we'll need to require is the util. We'll also set that equal to require. That will include the util.lua file, which is also in our project directory. The other thing we'll need to use when we use the scroll view is we need to create this top boundary. Now I'm going to set that equal to display dot screen origin y, and I'm just going to copy that down here. I'm going to create another variable called bottom boundary. These are just variables that the scroll view or the scroll content requires for it to work. We'll leave that set as display.screenOriginY. If you want to find more about what display.screenOriginY is, if you just Google, here I'm on the docs for Corona. If you just Google Corona SDK display.screenOriginY, you find this page and you can read more about exactly what that means. Okay, with that done, what we're actually going to do now is we'll create another variable here. This one we're also going to name scroll view, but we're going to say scroll view. We want to create a new copy of the scroll view. We're going to feed into it. Actually, sorry, we want curly brackets here. We're going to say top is equal to the top boundary value we created, comma, bottom equals the bottom boundary, end the curly brackets. Okay, now all we need to do to get our scroll view working is down the bottom here, we want to say, just above where our recipe group inserts, I'm going to say scroll view. In there, we want to insert the graphic, or the part of this screen here that we actually want to be able to scroll, which is the recipe 1 graphic. So again, recipe 1 is the actual graphic of the recipe, and that's the part we want to be able to scroll up and down. The top bar and the back button, we don't want them to scroll up and down, we want them just to sit statically on the screen while the recipe graphic scrolls up and down underneath it. So I'm going to save that. We'll come back to our app, Control R, begin, go to the first one. Now, the scrolling's not quite working now, so we'll just have a look at why. Okay, so the problem there was I'd actually said recipe group insert recipe 1. What we want to do is we insert recipe 1 into the scroll view, then we actually insert the scroll view into the recipe group. So we'll save that, come back, Control R, begin, and there we go. It's scrolling up and down nicely now. So we can press the back button. What we'll also do, and I just added this bit when I was testing before, we don't need that, so I'll get rid of it. Save that. Okay, what we're going to do now is save this file, recipe 1, as, and I'll just shut this other file. We're going to save recipe 1 now as recipe 2, recipe 3, recipe 4. So I'll go File, Save As, recipe 2, go File, Save As, recipe 3, File, Save As, recipe 4. Now I'm just going to quickly reopen those. So I'm going to open recipe 1, open recipe 2, open recipe 3, and I'll just put those in order. Okay, so on recipe 2, the only thing we need to change here is the image that it's displaying here. So graphics recipe 2. May as well just change the variable name there to recipe 2 as well. Down here, change that variable, change that as well. So we only really change it in 3 places. Change the variable name to recipe 2. Change the name of the graphic, so now we want to display the recipe 2 graphic, and also use that new variable name recipe 2 down there. Same step for number 3. Come along. This is now recipe number 3, recipe number 3, and recipe number 3. Save that. Come along to recipe 4. Change that one, and change this. Okay. So they're all done. The only other thing we've got to do is come along to menu, come along here. Actually, this is already set up to open up the recipe 2 Lua file. Number 3 is already set up, so is number 4, so the whole app should work now. Just save that, come back, Control R, press begin. There we go, there's the first one. Go back, along, scrolls up and down, go back, there's number 3, it's working, and number 4. So I hope you've enjoyed this video series and learnt something from it. Thanks.